morning and welcome to another podcast of Iconic Freedom, the Formula. We are setting a standard for accountability, the ownership of your choices, responsibility, the ability to respond to those choices, all doing no harm to others in our pursuit and our endeavor of our own happiness. Let each care for self and all will be cared for. And today we're going to wrap up with part 4 of this interview with JoJo, This Is Your Life, with Joann and her daughter Jenny. Absent from this, of course, is her daughter Jackie, Jenny's sister, older sister. But I find this interview to be so fascinating, and I've wrapped it up on the other end with some thoughts about the qualities that Joann exuded and was able to example to her own kids. And I do find it fascinating that they all have somewhat of their own entrepreneurial spirit. And that you can hear in the story, if you've been listening to the other weeks, you can hear in the story how often somebody had their own business or started their own business. That's a very interesting quality because it talks about that aspect of self-reliance, that they're looking to make their way in the world to make a productive life, but they want to do it all on their own. So enjoy.
LeBron James is the one that bought the old Tangiers and made it into that home for, you'd hear about him all the time on the radio, TV, about what he's done for these kids. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
When you look back over your life, your career, personally, professionally, what are the things? Are there a few things that stand out in your mind that were, kind of a fork in the road where, if I go this way, I could have that experience, but if I go that way, I'd have a different experience? And maybe you weren't using that language, but were there these forks in the road for you throughout your life that come to mind?
I always wanted to better myself.
Okay.
And because of the girls, I wanted them to have a good life because their father left them, didn't have anything to do with them anymore. So it was the three of us, and so that's how I struggled going through everything because of the girls. They were my motive.
I was going to say, so that was your motivation.
Yeah, that was my motivation. Is to keep, to sit back and just do nothing. I got 2 daughters.
Right.
And they ended up pretty good.
They did. So, again, just kind of passing it through this prism of what this podcast is all about is being accountable,
right?
Taking ownership of your life and your choices, and being able to respond to the choices, and not harming other people along the way if you can avoid it. But really pretty fascinating that your self-interest of your children became such a motivating factor that you were willing to, I'll do whatever I need to do.
Yeah.
Which, to be honest, that's some grit.
Yeah, I had to do what I had to do.
I
had no choice. I had 2 daughters. Their father was a loser. He didn't want, he stopped taking the girls and doing things with them, and we needed to be together.
But interesting though, so, even though you say, I didn't have a choice, I guess you did have a choice. You could have been, some floozy just hanging around and living off of welfare. Right. But there's some grit in you. Yeah. There's some salt of the earth woman that's part of who you are, your own constitution, that moved you to that place to say, I got to do whatever I got to do. Right. Because my kids are going to have it better than I had it.
Right. Exactly.
And that's those are remarkable qualities.
Yeah. So we
really remarkable.
And then just to piggyback off that, so my mom had no one to rely on. She's done everything on her own.
Right.
She didn't have mom and dad, let me borrow money, or aunt and uncle, let me borrow money, grandma, grandpa, let me borrow money. I've got these girls, I need this, I need that. I just remember growing up and her never making any excuse of anything, really. She had no one to fall back on. So my whole life was just her and us girls, like providing for us girls. Like she never did the welfare. I mean, no offense. I mean, everyone's got to do what they got to do.
Sure.
But she did it. She just kept working, and she just kept bettering herself, and she kept going from like one job would be an upgrade to the next, to the next, to the next, and it finally got her to retire.
Yeah.
That's a remarkable life.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm like 52 and I'm still relying on my mom on a lot of things, and she had no one to rely on. So, I mean, it's serious grit that she's had her whole life. Yeah.
So, do you recall your? I mean, and that's a really great epilogue.
Yes.
To life in general, and such an honor to you.
Yes.
I mean, you think about we're going to start broadcasting this during Mother's Day. What a great honor to you on Mother's Day to to have such great children that have turned out successful,
yes,
happy,
yes,
and having learned those qualities from you, that they're able to instill in their own children. Well, her own child. But I just it's quite interesting that that was part of you. And so I guess my follow-up question to that is, do you recall that kind of grit, that kind of salt of the earth, that from your parents? I mean, were they, would you say that they were those same kind of people that was just like, listen, we got to do what we got to do?
I was so young when my mother passed. Okay. That
you don't remember?
No, I don't remember.
And what about your well, no, not really your dad, because he's just, well, I mean, but aside from all of his philandering, did you think that he had those qualities of he's got to do what he's got to do, or no, because of the way he abandoned everybody?
I was too young to know.
Too young to know. Okay.
Because all I can remember about my dad is girls calling the house.
Right.
I'm pregnant.
Right.
I want the father of my child to be here. I'm going in to have the baby, and blah blah blah.
So,
well, it was an instant hate.
Sure.
You just.
Right.
And there would be no respect for somebody like that. And I was too young. I needed somebody. Right. And my grandparents.
So, what about your grandparents? Did you see that kind of constitution within them?
Yeah, within them. My grandparents were Polish, and they were from Poland. And their English was no English. So when I started kindergarten, guess who spoke Polish?
You.
Yes, I didn't know English.
Do you still speak Polish?
Some, very little anymore, because I don't nobody to talk to. Oh. So if you don't keep using it, you lose it.
Do you want to give us a little demonstration?
Jak się masz?
What does that mean?
How are you? And then you would come back and say dobrze, which means good. But when I started kindergarten, I didn't speak one word of English. It was all Polish, and they sent me home and said that you have to teach her English because I'm dead in the water. I couldn't correspond with anybody.
That's amazing.
So then that's when one of the uncles took me by hand, and they started teaching me English, because my grandparents spoke nothing but Polish.
Right.
And so that's all I knew is Polish. Jak się masz, dobrze, and carry on conversation with them. But then...
Wow. Did your brother speak Polish?
No, because at that time, my brother was living with my father.
So that was out of the picture.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's pretty interesting to me. So your parents came over.
Yes.
When did they come over?
Oh, gosh. At a very young age.
So early 1900s?
Yeah, I would think.
Okay. And so when they came over, were they sponsored by some? Do you know any of that story?
I don't know any of that story. I just know that there was quite a few of them together. Some of them stayed in Montreal, Canada.
Oh, wow.
And then the rest of them came to Ohio.
Yeah. Oh my. That's pretty funny.
Yeah. Parma, I don't know.
Right?
It's like the Polish capital, like Ohio.
Oh, really? Yeah. That's pretty fascinating, right?
And then the ones that stayed in Montreal, Canada, I still have connection with the one that's left, one of the girls that's left. But we used to always, one year we would go to Canada, and then the following year the Canadians would come to America. And we would go back and forth. So then I even learned some French.
Oh, wow.
Because Canada...
they were in Quebec.
Quebec is all French.
Wow.
And they had 2 daughters, and my grandparents had me, and so we just all.
And so you still speak French?
No. No, and I speak a little Polish. I used to, in fact, when I started kindergarten, I only spoke Polish. And they sent me home and said I had to learn some English because we couldn't.
You couldn't converse.
Yeah, we couldn't connect,
Right.
nothing, So I had to learn some English when I started kindergarten.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is there anything along your journey that at this moment in time, as you sit here and you recall, all the great things going on in your life that still stand out to you, like, wow, that was such a great moment. That was such a great moment.
Oh, jeez. I can't. I think my whole life was a great moment. Having my girls, doing things with my girls, seeing them grow up to be where they are today is such a great. To me, is the best thing in the world. Is they both came out with all the hassle and all the troubles and everything that I endured throughout their childhood. They turned out pretty darn good.
Is there anything you look back at that you wish you had done differently?
Oh boy, there's too many of those. There's relationships with some of those men that I had with, oh Lordy.
Well, we've all been there.
Yeah, there's too many of that.
Yeah.
To pick one, my life, I really lucked out. I met the right people at the right time. I did something right someplace that somebody would take me and say, hey, you don't belong here. You belong someplace else, and I want you to go there. And so there was always somebody to push me to the next level. Not actually push me, but to tell me, you're wasting your talent here. Move on. And
Right.
I did. And I followed direction from everyone that said, do this or do that. Go and try it out. And I did. I did try whatever anybody suggested. And I ended up okay.
I'd say more than okay.
Yeah, I think I ended up okay.
Well, and it's interesting because, you mentioned that, people were saying to you, urging you on.
Right.
But you still had to make the choice.
Right. Yes, I did.
Right? So, I mean, the basic principle of life is making the choice.
Yes.
And making a choice, whatever the choice is that path towards accountability.
Right.
That path towards being responsible.
Yeah.
It's what creates our integrity and our character.
And it's a scary thing to do because how do you know? You're taking a good position you're in right now and a good job, and you like all the people you're working with. Do you quit this and go on to the next level? And what if you don't like it?
Then you make another choice.
Yes. But I was fortunate that every time somebody recommended something, I ended up there.
But interesting, too, in just listening to your story is the amount of risk that you were willing to take.
I don't know where that came from. I don't know if I could do that again now at this age.
Knowing what you know now, you're like, I don't know if I would do that.
I don't know, because back then, I took the risks because I knew it was bettering myself. And I needed to do that because I had 2 girls to take care of.
Sure.
And I didn't have anybody helping me take care of those 2 girls. Their father left us alone. It was just us. And I just had to do what I had to do, and that was it. And many times I'd shake my head and say, am I doing the right thing? I remember that one job that that woman ordered, the one that hired me to do the trading on the teletype. I went down the street and rented a typewriter. And the girls were so mad at me because I'd come home and I'd sit at that typewriter, closing my eyes, typing, and faster, because you're doing you're putting orders in on the teletype, and you can't just dawdle because you might miss the market, the price. The stock is going up, and you're dawdling around with your,
right.
So every night after work, I would come home and sit at that typewriter, and they'd be so mad at me because, fix your own dinner.
Yeah.
Fix your own dinner. I got to type. For a month, I
Amazing.
did that for 1 month.
So, Jenny, I know that you have to leave, but I just wanted to ask you from in your epilogue towards your mom, what are the things that stand out to you now in terms of who she was and who she is to your life?
Oh gosh, I mean, she's all I know. You know, like even growing up, I mean, I didn't grow up with a family. I didn't grow up with aunts, uncles, grandparents, a father. So, I mean, she's always been, you know, my world. You know, just just learned from her.
La
you know?
familia.
Yeah, just
Right?
learned from her, and just I did the best I could. So yeah, she's.
And how close are you and Jackie?
Oh yeah, we're like,
Yeah.
you know, she's my sis.
Right.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
They're both very successful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very much.
Yeah, they're both very successful.
That
Jackie,
must make you very happy.
it does.
Very proud.
Yeah. Jackie has her own business also. She's got a dog sitting business, and now she's in dog training, and she's doing real well in Akron.
Wow.
Yeah, and Jenny has done real well with her aesthetics.
Mm-hmm.
And the girls turned both. I'm proud of both my girls.
It's
They
been a
were
good-
little Dickens when they were young teenagers,
Of course.
sneaking out the back door and walking to the corner and having the boys pick them up and go to Kent State University for parties.
Well, she just didn't get pregnant by happenstance. So let's just make sure we're clear about that. You know, it has to be, you know,
Something
riding in cars with boys, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know? But I mean, you must. I mean, it's been a wonderful life,
It has been. It really has been.
right?
I mean, we had our trials and tribulations like everybody else does, but I was on my own, and I hopefully was making the right decision. And you battle with yourself.
Sure.
Is this right? Or what's going to happen? What if it doesn't work? What if I fail at it? What do I do then? Where do I go?
Right.
But I put that foot forward and took a chance. And luckily, I always ran into people that had faith in me and liked me and helped me along. So
And what a lovely legacy.
yeah, I was very fortunate with the
And
people.
you have lots of life left.
Well, I hope so.
Yeah, you do. You do. I
I
mean,
hope
you
so.
have great vitality and, you know, lots of life ahead. That's an amazing thing that you enjoy it in a different way now.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
You know, which is pretty remarkable.
Mm-hmm.
And it is interesting for us, isn't it, to sit back and look back at all the things we did
Oh,
and think,
geez.
how did I do that? How did I even
You're right.
manage myself
Yeah.
back
Yeah,
then?
yeah,
You know, but we just did it.
yeah.
We
Yeah.
just got through it and we figured it out. You know, I
You just
remember
keep
the time
moving.
that I lived in
Yeah.
Human, I was working 3 jobs at once.
Yeah.
Oh
And
yeah.
I couldn't even tell you how I have no desire to do that this day.
Yeah.
And I don't even know how I
Right.
would do it, but you know
Right.
what? If I had to, I probably would.
Well,
but at
yeah.
least I had it in me
Right.
to be able to do
Right.
it. And
Right.
what you had in
Yeah.
you,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, and to take on, again, that responsibility of your children to the extent of your motivation is, I just got to do it. I just
Yeah.
got
You
to
have to do
get
it.
through
Yeah.
this.
Right.
Yeah.
But interestingly enough, the success that came with it eventually
Right.
in great ways
Yeah.
that you never could have
Yeah.
imagined because you had that persistence, because you had that motivation.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She never felt sorry for herself either.
And that's a pretty
You know what I mean?
remarkable
Like
thing.
she's never felt sorry for herself. Like even though she, like her growing up, you know, with her dad
Right.
and her mom, and it was never like, oh, boo-hoo me. It was just, okay, well, this is just life, and you just kind of got to go with it and just keep going to the next, to the next.
So there's a, you know, again, my kind of hypothesis of that, you know, people become a victim to
Mm-hmm.
life because they think life is happening to them
Right.
instead of because
Yes.
of them.
You're right.
Yeah.
And when they realize that life is happening because of me and because of the choices I'm making, well, now I'm not a victim.
Right.
But I think that scares people because
Sure it does.
they've taken the autobiography of being a victim to the extent of, well, now I don't have to be responsible because I'm a victim to my circumstances.
Right.
But what a lovely story listening to you tell it that that's not who you were. You
No.
were never a victim to anything.
No.
It was no, this is what I need to go do. When it was time for you and Jack to end it, no, we're done.
Right.
See you later, bye. Oops, here's your hat, what's your hurry?
Right.
Right? And then the same thing with the older, I don't know who the other gentleman was, but the older
Floyd,
guy.
yeah.
Floyd. His name was Floyd.
That alone tells the story.
No comment.
JoJo, I could have told you back then.
That's all that matters.
He was a hillbilly too.
JoJo, his name is Floyd.
Well,
Walk
from
away.
West Virginia or something.
Just walk
no
away.
offense, no offense. You got it. There's sense that you can't say certain things now. You're gonna
Walk away from Floyd. I'm telling you, darling, right now, you don't need to do that.
Yeah. Well, I'm telling you, I'm very fortunate. My girls turned out, I'm very fortunate. My daughters are great.
Amazing.
They've got good careers. They've got good ethics.
Yeah, somehow we stayed on the right side of the street.
Yes,
all
yes,
of
you
us,
did. Yeah,
Good for you.
yeah.
Wow.
It all worked out.
Any last thoughts before we wrap this up?
No, you just gotta take each day as it comes.
Well, I want to thank you so much for being a part of the
Oh,
podcast.
thank you.
This is such a great way for people to hear this and, to push this out there so that people can hear a story that is so inspiring. One of the things that I say often to people is that, you start walking back your choices and you realize the supply chain, right?
Right,
From
right.
whence you
Yeah.
came. And if you can get a hold of that and then understand things about it, somebody like Zachary,
Yeah.
can have that strength, that constitution in you and be able to say, okay, no matter what, I'm going to figure this out.
Right.
And then off he goes. And,
Yeah.
each generation, hopefully,
Yes.
has a better life than
Yes.
the one prior.
Right.
Yes.
And
You're right.
as a parent, I
Yes.
can imagine that's all you want.
That's exactly what you want.
Yeah, that's what you're looking for.
Absolutely. And I've been very fortunate.
Right.
Very, very fortunate.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again for doing this.
Thank
It's
you.
been lovely. And JoJo, this has been your life.
Thank you.
And I will say to you months ahead, because that's what we're doing this, is Happy Mother's Day.
Oh, thank you.
No greater gift.
Oh, thank you.
I think it's just an incredible interview. What an incredible story she has. A couple of things occurred to me during this last segment that I wrote down some notes, and one of them is that I've talked about self-interest. What is our self-interest? Because it motivates everything that we do. Of course, that self-interest in everything is to feel good, and her feel good was to better herself because of her girls. And that was her self-interest, is that she had children and she wanted to make the best for their lives. And so she made choices in that direction, which I thought was really amazing. The other thing is that she was very responsible. I mean, she took ownership of everything that she was doing. And that's a very interesting thing. I mean, even with, the go-go dancing and then the UBS Payne Weber and having to, shuffle off her kids for a week so she could go to Philadelphia. But she took ownership of all of those things because she had that self-interest and that drive of wanting to have a better life for her kids. I thought it was very interesting. Well, a couple other things was the importance of people seeing the potential in her. I thought that was really remarkable. And what an important aspect of life that plays in our world. To have people be able to see something in another individual and then to nurture and encourage that. And when you think about family, you think about your parents, isn't that what they do? Is they see your potential and then they encourage and they nurture that. The role of parent is so important. It's so important to be a healthy parent in order to create healthy children. I thought the other thing that was really interesting, she never saw herself as a victim, which, I think is a very powerful message to people. That, and she didn't, it was almost like she didn't have time. I don't have time to see myself as a victim. I got too many things to do. But I thought that was a remarkable quality. And the other thing, and then her relationship with men, when I asked about, do you regret anything? and the relationship with men. And and we'll focus on a topic later on about this at some point, maybe during the summer. But, relationships with people that you want to get involved with, to be in love and all those other things, such an important aspect of your life, because it can be so altering in the trajectory of where you're going. You make a choice in one direction, and that can thwart everything that you hope to achieve. So the importance of really getting to know somebody and finding out about them and finding out where do you fit, and are these good things, and is this person a good fit for me, or hey, it's not a good fit for me. And honestly, not engaging, jumping in bed with somebody where it starts to confuse everything because it just becomes a physicality, but instead getting to know the qualities of those people. Are those people of integrity and character? Do they have the integrity and character of somebody like Joann, where, she had a lot of grit. She knew how to get things done. If that person that you want to connect with, are they that way? Lots of questions about that, stuff that we will definitely follow up on. And I appreciate the fact that you spent this month of May with me, with JoJo, with Joann and Jenny, talking about this amazing life of accountability, responsibility, ownership, integrity, and character. And once again, we are at the end of another podcast. Thank you so much for joining me. Hit that like button if you would. Share this with your family and friends. You never know how this might inspire them. If you'd like to check out my book, lulu.com. If you want to subscribe to the podcast, you can do that down below. Let each care for self, and all will be cared for. I will be here next week.